Welcome to Glocal Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina.
Hello, hi and welcome to another episode of Glocal Voices. My name is Taiwo Afolabi. This time around we're live and direct at our studio. We're at the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina in Saskatchewan here in Canada. It was a great time at the IDIERI 2025 at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, where we had really remarkable scholars and practitioners across the world really sharing about their work at the IDIERI. And we sort of want to continue that in this episode where I'll be talking to Dr. Sarah Woodland from University of Australia, Melbourne. She attended the IDIERI 11th, hope I got that correctly, and she's here with us at the center. Good to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm Sarah Woodland. I'm a senior lecturer in theatre in the Victorian College of the Arts. I'm also on the steering committee for the Creativity and Wellbeing Research Initiative. This is situated in the University of Melbourne in the Faculty of Fine Arts and Music. So it's a conservatoire model training school, but it has a really strong applied research and performance-led or practice as research culture as well. So in my department, we teach at undergraduate, master's and PhD level. We offer an MFA as well. As I say, the emphasis is very much on practice-led research and the intersections of the performing arts and other disciplines.
Amazing. As part of the IDIERI 11 in Vancouver, and also in addition to Festival of Arts and Discourse, we've been really talking to practitioners, applied theatre, practitioners, scholars, drama in education, and all of that. And each one have kind of highlighted, a part of their strand of their research or something they want to share. And so I want to offer that to start with that. What about your research do you want to share with us on Glocal Voices today?
Yeah, thanks. Well, when I was at IDIERI, I was part of a panel called The Braided River, and it was about the intersection of Indigenous and non-Indigenous knowledges in applied theatre practice. And that's a space that I work in quite a lot. And the project that I was profiling in that was a participatory theatre model that was aimed at health promotion and education around sexual health for First Nations young people in Australia. And this came about through a long-standing relationship that I have with a theatre maker in Australia. Her name's Kamara Bell-Wykes. Kamara and I met at a conference about stigma in 2016, and we were both talking about our respective projects, and we hit it off and we started talking and became friends, and over the years started to think through how we might collaborate on a project together. And Kamara is a Yagara and Butchulla woman from southeast Queensland, but lives and works in Melbourne. And so basically, for about 17 years, Kamara has been making theatre with IDIERI Theatre Company, which is the leading First Nations theatre company in Australia, that addresses health issues for First Nations communities. So it's very much, I guess you could call theatre in health education. And so she's been working on those projects as a director and a dramaturg and a writer for many years. And those works have toured around the country. Basically, the model has been that they start with a brief from the Department of Health. The State Department of Health has a particular area that they want to explore and pursue. And then the company work together to create a performance. They research the issue, they create a performance, they tour the performance into First Nations communities, and then there's a circle afterwards where people what's called a yarning circle, where people can talk to the actors, and then the troupe moves on. And Kamara decided she wanted to explore a more participatory way of doing this, and to start to work with community groups from the somewhat of a ground level to identify the issues with them and use participatory methods to I guess, position the community as experts in their own experience and their own health concerns. And so she approached me to see how we could work together, because I had this background in applied theatre, to create this model. So we were funded by the Department of Health, among others. The University of Melbourne supported, to start this process. And so we started with a baseline bit of research around that whole corpus of work that IDIERI had been doing for 17 years. And we worked together on interviewing past practitioners and establishing, you know, what the approach was, you know, the principles behind the approach, the dramaturgies, and we ended up publishing that as a book, which came out last year, which I'm plugging now. Thank you.
What was the title of the book?
The title of the book is First Nations Australian Theatre for Health Equity, subtitled Healing Stories.
Yeah, and it's open access.
It's open access, good. Yeah. Published through Palgrave Macmillan. So, so that's the past snapshot, and then we worked together simultaneously to that to create this new model, which was more participatory. And the brief from the Department of Health was to look at sexual health, because there's a really big gap in outcomes for First Nations communities around sexual health. And so Kamara and the team came up with this world for the play to be set in, which was, and this was actually, we consulted, we did some early workshops with First Nations young people in a drug and alcohol rehab centre, and they helped us come up with this this world for the play, which is the after party at a football carnival. So football carnivals in Australia, Australian rules football carnivals is a big part of the culture, and they happen in most communities, and there's a circuit that they go around. And then they have the after party, which is obviously where there's a lot of young people gathering together. There's drugs and alcohol and risky behaviours and all the things, the fun as well, and the dancing, and you know. And this is the world that we created. This is the container for the show, and so it became called The Score. So The Score is like a kind of play on words. It's like a football score, but it's also like when you're scoring in a kind of relationship sense, and it's also knowing the score. So that's the name of the program, and you can look on IDIERI's website and see more about it there. But basically, it begins with what we call a kick-off performance, which is like a stimulus performance of it's only about 10 minutes long. And that's played in a community, and then the young people who see that performance decide whether they want to join a workshop program. And so then we run a workshop program that can be anywhere between 1 and 5 days. And in that workshop program, there's a kind of dual purpose of the young people are exploring the issue through the roles that were presented in the initial performance. So we've got these two protagonists. Yeah. So it draws on theatre of the oppressed, forum theatre. It's like an adapted form, and they explore those issues, but then they also join the performance. So they bring their own stories and experiences, and they learn the dances, and they become part of the friend group of the two main protagonists, who are, you know, will they, won't they have a sexual relationship, and if they do, how will they remain safe and healthy? So, yeah.
Well, so, and thanks for giving that extended context. It's very useful to hear a lot about that project, and I have to go look for that book to read it. What are the highlights of that project that came out for you?
Well, I mean, the highlights would really be around the multi-layered outcomes that we saw. So it's not just about the outcomes for young people being able to talk about these issues in a sort of safe, stigma-free setting, but then it's also about them being able to, I guess, raise their own aspirations in terms of performance and engaging with creative practice, because they're then the third part of the process is that the performance is presented back, and it's a grand final performance, right? So to keep the football metaphor going.
That's true.
And so, there's this other part that's about them working with an ensemble of young First Nations theatre makers who are not that distant from their own age. There's peer learning happening. There's this kind of aspirational thing happening where they're seeing their peers as leaders in their community, and then they can become leaders. So there's that multi-level stuff, and then there's the ensemble themselves who are developing their own skills as community engaged practitioners and their own literacy around sexual health and relationships, and then the community stakeholders. So that's a highlight, I would say, is that there were so many multiple outcomes interweaving, and it really speaks to how, I guess, Indigenous health research works, which is in that holistic way. It's not just about this deficit framing of a problem and we come to solve the problem. It's much bigger than that, and it's around social and emotional well-being and community building.
I love the idea of bringing equity into the conversation, because we know that a lot of the times, especially with cultures and systems that are on the margin, is always a savior coming to come and save them out of there, which is really quite interesting.
Yeah.
For you, what are the tensions for this kind of research or this kind of community-based practice?
Well, I mean, in that project, there were many tensions, because there are all these sometimes competing, not always, but agendas at play, right? So you've got the funding agenda, which is the Department of Health, who have a particular
mandate
framing. They have a mandate, but they have a way that they frame health in a very Western positivist medical model. And they're to their credit, they're trying to, embrace Indigenous ways of knowing and Indigenous holistic well-being practices. But it's sometimes a bit tokenistic. It's sometimes, that they might want to, in theory, support it, but then in practice they can't resource the sheer amount of time that's required to build those relationships. Then you've got Western applied theatre practices, and then First Nations practices and knowledges, which aren't always in tension. Sometimes those things were really complementary, and we instinctively knew they would be, and that's why we worked on this model together. So there's that. But I think then the other thing is capacity. Communities do not always have capacity to I guess, respond to the need for a sustainable engagement. So if you go in trying to create this ethical, sustained engagement and create lasting relationships, another piece of this project was capacity building and going back and training people in these approaches. But there's no capacity for the capacity building, if you know what I mean. Because these people are on the front line of trying to deliver their health services or their youth services, and they can barely do that because they're so underfunded. And so you might have all the will in the world, but it can't necessarily be enacted. And you might speak to one person and spend a lot of time with one person creating a partnership, and then they move on, and a new person doesn't know what it's all about. And that goes to ethical research as well, because we were funded by IATSIS further into the project. That's the Australian Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies. And we were trying to put a very ethical participatory research frame around this, and to try and co-design some of the research methods. And the community doesn't necessarily have capacity to do that either. So that's the biggest tension.
Interesting. from this research, and I know that you have other research that you're engaged in.
Yeah.
But from this research and perhaps others, what are the lessons for you? What have you learned from that in terms of you as a practitioner in your own journey of becoming and discovering?
I think there's a lot of it is about patience, and also it's really about how to leverage the system that I work in to serve this work, and to try, it's not always easy, but to try not to be overwhelmed by the demands of the system I'm coming from or working within, and their metrics for success,
Yeah.
but rather use, this may be a bit controversial, but use them as a resource
Leverage.
to leverage what's happening over here, and try not to get pulled into the politics and the structures that the university imposes and the university system imposes on us. And I think I feel like I'm becoming more able to do that and separate those things. That's a very pragmatic answer to your question, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Leverage, and I love the. I always want to use the word leverage. That to me, that's a diplomatic word too.
It is.
What are the future directions that you want to share, if there is any?
Yeah.
You want to share. I know there are many, but the ones you're comfortable sharing.
The ones I'm comfortable sharing. I mean, look, I've started a really beautiful project recently, which goes back to my, I guess, roots in justice and carcerality. And so I'm working with a group of women. They belong to an advocacy group that supports women who have been experienced incarceration and criminalisation. And they want to create a performing arts or artistic response to their experiences. And they want to educate the public about the stigma and the challenges that they face. And I'm working with a colleague in criminology and another colleague in music, plus this team of women as co-researchers, and we're co-designing a project together, really from the ground up. And so it's that real ethical co-design process that, you're walking in basically with nothing. Here's who we are, here's who we all are, and here's our experiences. What do we want to create together? And we got some funding to start that process, and we've just put an ethics in for that. And so I'm really excited about where that's going, because it's fun, it's a great group, it's a really creative project, and I think it could really do something interesting.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. So we've been talking to Dr. Sarah Woodland from the University of Melbourne in Australia. She attended IDIERI and she's been with us at the center as a visiting researcher here at the center, and we've had the opportunity to really engage with her, talk to her, meet with her, dine, wine together, explore the city together. I just love the work that you're doing over there. And I think one of the things I mentioned earlier in one of the episodes, it's that I really honor and respect the work that everyone is doing in our places, in our spaces, in our various contexts. So I just want to echo that, the remarkable work you're doing with communities, particularly indigenous communities in Australia, and your work with justice and incarceration. But with that, we want to come to the end of this episode, and Dr. Sarah Woodland's details will be available for those that want to connect more with her, and then really hope that you can connect with us in our next episode. This is Taiwo Afolabi signing out.
You have been listening to Glocal Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina. For more details about the Center, visit www.cset.ca.